Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. And today we have with us Dana Wilde, who is the #1 best-selling author of Train Your Brain and the creator of The Celebrity Formula. Dana, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so looking forward to be here.
Yeah, me too. I always am interested in mindset and training and limitations. And you remember from T. Harv Eker and The Millionaire Mind, and there's always these limitations. And so whenever someone has found a new way to talk about releasing those kinds of things, it's so neat to pick up a nugget or two. So give us a little bit of a background on yourself, and then what led you to create this formula for training your brain.
Well, thank you so much, and I agree with you. You know, mindset is so important, and I think you've got to find new ways to think about it and talk about it, and I hope we do that today. You know, I actually had the pleasure of, way back in the day, I won't date myself, but it's over 30 years ago, and I was working in a corporate job, one of those cubicle jobs where you're wired in, and I was miserable. I was just miserable being on the time clock and having to even ask to take bathroom breaks and things like that. But the one benefit of the job was that they put us through, it was a major corporation, they put us through a 40-hour training on the brain, how the mind works. It was done by a gentleman named Lou Tice, who was just awesome. And it was so extensive, and I was already kind of such a mindset psychology geek anyway, even at a young age. And when I figured out, oh my gosh, it's really true that what you think about, you bring about, all those phrases we hear, what you focus on grows, all that stuff. I was like, oh, I'm out of this corporate job. I left, and I ended up, just living a life of adventure and living out of a backpack for 10 years and all this stuff. And when I came back, I started a direct sales business, and everybody was teaching action, how to pick up the phone, how to network, all of this stuff. And I was like, why is nobody teaching mindset? I've spent most of my life just creating my own realities all over. Why is nobody teaching this? So I wrote Train Your Brain, and my direct sales team went to the $1 million level in 19 months, which was just unheard of. We shattered the company record. Wow. And it was really amazing. And I had fun, and I built that to a multi-million-dollar business, and then sold it, and then kind of just played around for a year until I decided to found the Mind Aware. People kept asking for Train Your Brain, and so we did the same thing at the Mind Aware. I came in and we built it from zero to over $1 million in sales in the first 2 years, 60,000 followers in the first 2 years, and it's 100% mindset. I'm so passionate about this that this can actually be taught. You can learn how to think differently, and that's what we're doing.
So what do you say to someone that might, if you were speaking with them, they might say, oh, I'm good to go. My mindset's good. And in reality, it's kind of like the frog in the water where it starts getting, hotter and hotter and they boil. Well, these people think or assume or just kind of believe that their mindset is as good as it can get because they don't know what they don't know. And when you can show them, maybe where they should be, could be, does that kind of put a light bulb in their mind? And do you ever have that come up with people?
Yeah, that's a really smart observation. It's funny because we all have these kind of habits of thought, and we all have these stories that we tell that we don't realize we're telling unless you start to wake up. And that's what we're trying to do with this material. One of the key things that I want to let people know right early on, and in fact, this is the single most important thing I'm going to say in this interview, is that each and every one of us has inside of our brains a part of the brain called the reticular activating system. Yeah. And this reticular activating system, this isn't just about matching beliefs. This reticular activating system is standing at attention all day, every day, listening to what you're thinking about and what you're talking about. And then look wherever you're sitting, all the colors and sights and sounds and sensations and everything that's around, that we've got billions of bits of information coming at us every minute of every day. And that little RAS, that reticular activating system, sifts through that. And what's it doing? It's matching. It's like a little matchmaker that lives in your head, and it's looking for whatever you're thinking about, whatever you're talking about. So this is why when you buy a new car, you tend to see that car everywhere because you're thinking about it and it's important to you. And so we are trying to help people to become better thinkers because, you might say, I've got really good mindset, I believe in myself, and I've got all these positive things going, but sometimes we all do it. You bust yourself, shiny object syndrome. You see that thing, and the thought you have is, oh, I should be on YouTube. If I'm not on YouTube, I'm not going to be successful, and that's the message that your brain is matching.
Yeah, and I've used that reticular activator system for many years, especially even with the car example that you gave, where your mind is just constantly at work, and you might have bought that red whatever type vehicle, and then all of a sudden you start noticing them on the road to work, and they've always been there. You just weren't aware of it. So that RAS brings to your conscious memory things that you've already seen, but you didn't even realize it. So just knowing that there's true power in our brain, in our mind, and those are two separate things, as you know. I just love how that ties together. So you said, I think a little bit earlier, what you focus on grows. What's the significance of that?
Well, I think that's the thing that sets us apart from a lot of motivation stuff that you hear. You go out and you hear motivational speakers say you have to believe in yourself, and what you focus on grows, and you can do it, and you get really, really pumped up, but nobody tells you why. Nobody tells you how to shift that. It's easy to say believe in yourself. Well, how do you believe in yourself? And so what we're helping people to do, and this is really the key thing, you can know everything about this in the next 3 minutes, which is how to shift yourself emotionally. Because if you can intentionally think different thoughts in your head and shift yourself emotionally, now what happens is you're using a better brain. When you're frustrated or you're overwhelmed or you're tired or you're stressed, you're constricting the creative pathways in your brain. And when you just make that shift from frustration to hope, you already start to open the creative pathways. And so we like to say that happiness is practical. If you are making mindset your primary focus, and by mindset, I mean feeling good, being happy, believing, being more hopeful, intentionally thinking in your head, what happens is you have the practical side effect that you're using your better brain, you're getting access to better ideas, you feel like working. You feel more excited to work. You feel like taking action. You have access to better choices, like you make better choices. You show up in the world better. You like people better. They like you better. You get better results. You get in the zone. You work less because you're feeling good, and it's like everything you touch turns to gold. So we're not saying that, it doesn't take action to build a business. But what we're trying to teach with Train Your Brain is that we want you to take intentional action. So feel good first. Make feeling good your priority, and then do anything after that. Yeah. Because then that's intentional action. You're going to get better results.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And here's something else. I know that you talk a lot about action, and I like to think about hey, knowledge is power. And if you have the knowledge of this mindset, and wow, you're going to have so much power. Well, that's incorrect, because knowledge is just potential power. You've got to do something with it. You got to put it into action. So let's talk a little bit about, once you have this beginnings of the mindset, and it's not just let me do this thing, check the box, I'm good to go. I'm confident that it's an ongoing, daily, if not hourly, check and recheck. But let's talk a little bit about putting that into action.
Well, if you think about it, where mindset comes first and then action, right? And so if you are thinking that the most important thing is mindset, the most important thing is that I feel good. So what we do is it's a matter of checking in with yourself. Am I being aware? So step one of Train Your Brain is wake up, be aware of what's happening. And if you wake up and you are catching yourself having a negative thought or a negative feeling, that's the wake up time to say, do I want to keep matching this? Step two is, do I want this to keep matching up. And sometimes you don't care. Like for years, I said, I'm not a morning person, and I didn't care if I ever was a morning person. So it was fine. Sometimes you don't care, but sometimes you do. And if that's the case, then it's important, step 3, to start talking about the current situation in a way that feels good. And then step 4, you feel the positive emotion. So when you take action by thinking differently, then you will automatically take action. So step 3, talk about the current situation in a way that feels differently. So let's say you've got a problem, maybe a common problem with your listeners might be not having enough clients. Is that fair to say?
Sure.
Okay, so maybe you've got this feeling like I don't have enough clients, or my clients are broke, or they're not spending enough money, or I can't seem to close anything. Like there's this kind of chronic underlying stress feeling. Well, when you wake up and you bust yourself on that, and then you say, now, hold on, I don't want to keep matching this feeling. I don't want to keep matching these thoughts. I'm going to start proactively being a proactive thinker in my head and thinking different thoughts. Well, you might not be able to start saying a positive affirmation like, oh, my clients are buying every day in vast numbers. We can't do that. But you can start to talk about it differently. Okay, I want to shift this feeling. I like thinking in my head. I want to feel differently. I want to move forward. I like being able to focus on one thought at a time. I like the idea that I could have better clients. I like the idea that I could have more clients. I like the choosing that I can think thoughts that feel better. And I like the idea that there are clients out there probably right now who need what I have to offer, and I like the services that I have, and I feel really good thinking about the possibilities of the clients that are coming to me, and I like the idea of using my best brain to come up with those choices. And there's people out there who love and need what I have, and I know that, and I know I'm good at what I do, and I know that I have ebbs and flows, and I can go right back up into a successful time at any time. And I like the idea that I can go be successful at any time. And, people walk off of the radar that you just didn't expect. And sometimes people come out of the blue and buy, and I like those surprises, and I'm open to those surprises, and I'm open to finding the right people for me, and I like attracting good people. Well, when you say 50 sentences in a row like that are all very gentle, and they're not perfect affirmations, but they start to give you emotional momentum. And when you have emotional momentum, now you can take that action that you asked about. Now you're ready to take action. You want to create the emotional state where the action you take is going to make a bigger difference.
I love emotional momentum. I think that's really cool to think about. And something you said about affirmations and then those kind of gentle statements made me think of something. Remember way back in the day, something called BHAG.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Big, hairy, audacious goal, exactly. Right?
So here's something that crosses my mind. You have this kind of a seesaw thing going on here, in my opinion. On one side, you push down on the seesaw, and it's like, we need that BHAG, boom, because it's a big, hairy, audacious goal, and we've been told to do that. But then on the other hand, it's like, it's so big, and it's so hairy, and so audacious that it's literally out of reach. So for instance, isn't it true that there comes a time with these affirmations or goals, however you want to think of them as, that you better really dial it into a believable level? Because if someone is on, Skid Row and making, minimum wage, for instance, and their affirmation is, I make $1 million a year, I make $1 million a year. Hey, that's a great positive affirmation, but they're never going to believe it. They didn't make $100 last month. And so there's that big gap. So talk a little bit about about setting good affirmations that, pull you and stretch you, because I'm all for stretch goals and these affirmations. But if it's too much, then you're literally, maybe not even consciously, but you're literally working against yourself because you feel like you're lying to yourself. Yeah,
it's really true. And here's the way the litmus test that we use. If it feels good, it's working. And so that's the work, quote unquote work. We like to call it play. That's the play. The play is, how do I find a way to talk about the current situation in a way that feels good? How do I talk about a way to talk about my BHAG in a way that feels good? And what you'll notice is that when you're kind of feeling in the iffy range with your, we call them mantras instead of affirmations, when you're feeling in the iffy range and they don't feel 100%, it's better to be kind of vague. So you might notice when I was talking before, I was saying things like, I like thinking in my head. I like having the opportunity to choose my thoughts. I like focusing on one thought at a time. Sometimes I will start sentences with something like, I'm starting to notice that my emotions are shifting, or I'm starting to notice that things are getting better for me, which people would say, well, it's just kind of silly talk, but what you're doing is you're starting in a place that's believable. You can't really argue with, I like the idea that I can focus on one thought. And so you don't have that angel on one shoulder, devil on the other. Once you start getting the momentum going, you can get more and more specific, so you can start to feel more hopeful, then more believing, then more knowing, and then more like, oh my gosh, I know I can do this. And you can talk about it more specific. One of the cheats that we like to use for people with really deeply ingrained ideas. So sometimes people are shy and they think they need to be an extrovert, or they're disorganized and they think they need to be organized to be successful. And we say, if you can't think of anything else to say, then just use the powerful word but. Because the word but negates everything that came before it. And it's a trigger word, it's a power word for the brain, that it will automatically think what everything comes after it goes right into the brain. What comes before it is ignored. And so you can be disorganized and say, I'm disorganized, but I have my own systems. I'm disorganized, but my clients like my style. I'm disorganized, but I'm still making money. I'm disorganized, but my business is still growing. Same for anything. If you think you need to be an extrovert, you don't. I'm introverted, but I attract the right clients. I'm introverted, but things are working out for me, but my business is growing, but things are going. And that word but really helps to negate the feeling of lying to yourself. It's nice if you can say a perfect affirmation or a perfect mantra, but if you can't, it's better and more important to feel good. So how does it feel when you think that thought? And that's the value to look at.
Yeah, that's really cool, because then it's almost like getting those little tiny bursts of energy by checking off something on your to-do list. Whereas if you had a major point on your to-do list, maybe you ought to, do the little ones first to kind of get that momentum. And you're kind of in a money sense, Dave Ramsey talks about the snowball effect, pay off that smallest credit card and then burn that thing. And then now it's like, wow, I got some momentum. Let's go to the next one. So same with some of the
very good point, Mike. I really like that analogy of what you just said with a little, very good, with the little action things. That's really smart. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, the big mo, right? We got to have that momentum, and boy, I just think that in your mind, we got to maybe, let's not say it out loud to have our mind hear us, but we might have to trick our mind, into like stay into that mode of momentum, right?
Totally. That's exactly what we're doing. And it's a great word for it, is we're really just trying to trick our brains. We're trying to trick our brains into feeling good and focusing enough to feel good. It's kind of like, think about our culture. We live in cultures where people care about the house they live in, the neighborhood, the car they drive, the food they eat, the clothes they wear. And I really just want people to start caring about the thoughts they think in their head. Because when you're more focused, and you don't have to be like a Zen Buddha monk where you're like aware and, consciously focused and present 80% of the time. We're unconscious 95 to 99% of the day. And if you can eke that to 0.5% a day, where you're just being a more proactive thinker in your head, you will start to get ridiculous results, and quickly, like literally within 72 hours, your reticular activating system will kick in. If you start today, say something positive 25, 50 times a day for the next 3 days, and watch it come on your radar, just like that Volkswagen Bug comes on your radar,
Yeah. So there's probably some people that go, well, I'm not a negative person, but they might have a tendency to think negatively, right? So what is something that you would say to them that says that maybe there's an exercise that someone can do to start, like say something positive 25 times a day? What? I don't know what to say. So what would you recommend someone that has that tendency? Because again, I think that people feel like I'm broken and horrible if I'm a negative person, but we're not saying that. We're saying we all have that tendency to look at the negative thing that is in front of us. So how do we flip that switch and start to think and say the positive so that we start creating more of it?
Yeah, that's great. First of all, good news. The negative people who've had upbringings where they're negative, or they just have a tendency to think negatively, they have the biggest success with this material. And the reason why is if you have somebody who's generally positive, like I can take your life from a 7 to a 9 or a 7 to a 10 with this, but you're kind of living in a pretty decent way already because you're generally positive. But if you've been banging around on like a level 3 with negativity and not feeling so good, you start implementing just a little bit of this, you're going to zing up so fast, right? Yeah. So the more negative you've been living and the more negative your upbringing, if you can implement even just a few of these things, you're going to start to see results really quickly, right? So the first one, using that word but, like we talked about before, is really going to help. It's going to help you, feel better. And then the next thing is give yourself a break and don't make this about thinking perfectly all the time. Make this about being aware, and that goes for everybody. We tend to think like we have a negative thought and then we go, oh man, I'm a bad person because I had that negative thought. And then you're like, oh man, I just said I was a bad person. That's another negative thought. Oh, I'm a really bad person. And it spirals. And what I'm trying to do with Train Your Brain is tell people that when you have a negative thought and you catch it, that's a time not to beat yourself up, but to celebrate, because that means you just woke up. And that's the most important step. When you hear that negative thought in your head, that's the time to go, oh man, I got it. Good for me. There it is. I see it. And so instead of beating yourself up about being negative, the first thing you can do is start to celebrate and cheer yourself on when you catch that, and then go easy about it. Like, just try to feel around and find words that feel a little bit better. And sometimes they're going to be stupid. In fact, one of the most popular exercises we have is to pick whatever problem you've got. So it can be getting clients or making money or losing weight or anything, right? And just start saying the mantra 25 times a day. It's so easy to, and then fill in the blank. It's so easy to lose weight. It's so easy to make money. It's so easy to get clients. It's so easy. It's so easy. And part of the reason why I think this is effective, I don't really 100% know, but based in the parameters of what I teach, here's what I think. I think it's effective because you almost feels ludicrous. And so it kind of makes you laugh. Like if you've been trying your whole life to lose weight, and then you start saying 25 or 50 times a day, oh, it's so easy to lose weight. It's so easy to lose weight. You're putting your brain in kind of that happy, fun state. And your reticular activating system will kick in regardless after 3 days of that. And you'll start to see the evidence that it's working. And so the key thing here is to say it from a fun, playful standpoint and not argue with it. So you don't get to just say, like, it's so easy to get clients and then go, oh, this is never going to work. Right? Yeah. Like you have to just do it from a, ooh, it's so easy to get clients, kind of attitude. 25, 50 times a day, set some reminders on your phone, put some Post-it notes up that say, it's so easy to remind yourself, and let go of the outcome. Don't look for the results and let go of the outcome. Do it just for the sake of being silly. Do it just for the sake of feeling good. And then let your brain take over. This is not an action thing where you're doing the work. You're just priming your brain. Like, think about a pump that you have to prime to get it going. Well, that's what all the work that we're doing in the Train Your Brain Sandbox is about. It's about priming your brain so that your brain takes over and does the rest of the work. You don't have to.
Yeah. That's so awesome, because then at that point, at some point, it's kind of like we're talking about losing weight. It could be the same thing as gaining weight. There's some people that are thin as a rail and they want to gain 20 pounds. So we can use the same analogy either way. But once you put in that hard work and get to that certain level of where you want to be initially, then you can kind of go on maintenance mode, and it's not grind mode. So I'm certain that in your mindset sandbox systems that you're able to say, okay, we're going to just grind it out for this period of time. But after that, now here's the maintenance, because your mind is going to systematically be working kind of on like not overdrive, but automatic mode, because we've taught it what to do, and it's not this struggle and strain anymore, right? Is there a point that you feel that it's
Mike, you've just nailed it so much. I try to tell people negative thoughts are never going to go away. You're going to always have them. Me too. I've been doing this over 30 years. I still have negative thoughts every single day, usually about my computer. but you get better at catching them faster. Yeah. So and you don't take any big lows anymore. It's really fast. And the time between those negative thoughts is longer. And it becomes more, you're kind of in it for the experiment now, and you're kind of in it for the adventure, and you realize at any given point, any results you're getting, you can shift relatively quickly with focusing in a different way, focusing your mind in a different way, and allowing yourself to get more into the play and to the feel good. And here's what happens, because I want to go back to your action thing, because I know a lot of the people listening really rely on action to build their businesses or live their lives. And so in regard to action, when you are priming your brain like this, and when you're really in a feel good place and you're in a good mindset place, this is when you start to get those ideas that make you go, oh, I just got the best idea. Yeah. And then you implement. And this is the time when you sit down, before I do anything, I sit down and I go, this is going to be easy. This is going to be fun. I'm going to have such a good time. I feel so productive. I do that for 60 seconds. And you know what? Boom, you sit down and it's done. So now what happens is you're living your life at such a higher level, because you're living your life putting mindset in the forefront. It's the first stop to the other thing. And so, nobody gets a good idea focused on their computer trying to build a PowerPoint presentation. They get their good ideas when they're out walking the dog or in the shower or, on the highway, vacation. Right? Yeah, that's when you get them. And so we're trying to help you access that faster and quicker, and access the better results faster and quicker. So you're spot on. You're just spot on with it. So it becomes really easy and really fun, and you don't freak out about the negative stuff so much anymore.
Neat. Well, Dana, it's really awesome chatting with you, and I think we could go on, but let's wrap her up with what's the best way that people can reach out, learn more about you, pick up a copy of your book, have an assessment done, things like that.
Well, I have a surprise for you. So you can find me at danawilde.com, and Wilde has an E at the end. And but here's the surprise. I want to give everybody who's listening my Train Your Brain book, the audiobook version, free, my favorite price. And cool. You can just go to danawilde.com/Saunders, and you will be able to access it for free.
Awesome. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like 6 hours. It's like 6 hours, and it's it's all this, everything you need to know about doing this and implementing this in happiness is practical, but you need the steps to implement it. It's all there.
Awesome. Well, Dana, thank you so much for that. I'll make sure that is in the show notes with the direct link, and we really appreciate you coming on today. Thank you.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.